In this video, I'm going to show you how to choose a winter campsite on the snow in the forest. I'm going to give you several pointers and important things to watch for when you're choosing a campsite on the snow in a very deep forest in extreme cold. I'm actually going to take you out on one of my expeditions to do this so you get a real live sense of what I have to consider when I'm choosing these campsites on the snow when it's really cold. How cold? Got to minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit that day. Really chilly. One of my YouTube subscribers asked a question about site selection. What should you do? How should you choose it? I'll go over just a couple of quick pointers here. One of the key points is make sure you have enough space if you're in the trees that you actually have space to get all the guidelines, because it's not just a tent footprint. If you see how far the guidelines go out on this tunnel type tent on the front here and on the side, the tent actually, even though our tent pad looked really huge, by the time we stake out the guidelines, that's exactly the space we need. So that's the key. The second thing is, of course, make sure it's flat as possible, because once you have a slope and you either head up or head down to the slope and then you're rolling on each other, it's quite irritating. And for tent mate harmony, not having to roll on each other all night, even though you're both understanding, it does get annoying when I'm accidentally crashing all over Terry because I'm on the uphill side and squishing him against a tent wall. And then, of course, he's against a tent wall, which compresses his sleeping bag, makes him cold, and then he has to wake up here and scoot over, and then I got to roll back. And it's this struggle all night long. So especially in snow areas, you do have the option of really adjusting the landscape to suit your purpose. So if you have a general slope, we have stomped the heck out of the high spots and even shoveled it just to make it a little bit better, because you have to live with that all night. And once you're rolling and struggling and set your tent up, you're not going to want to change that out. The next point I want to show you here is we did end up with a big chunk of snow on the other end of the tent. We did move the tent quite a bit farther along, so if that snow does break loose at night, it doesn't hit the door. It could break a pole, it could hit Terry in the head. I mean, all sorts of things could happen that are not desirable. So you definitely want to make sure and scan the trees. Now, because of where we ended up having to put our tent, so we're a quarter mile from the road, and that snow slop there, what I did is I shook the tree as hard as I could for almost a minute, and it didn't break loose. So hopefully nothing will happen there. Some other tent site selection pointers. Don't put your tent in a ravine or a waterway or anything where water could flow. Of course, in the winter, that's not going to happen. However, if you put your tent in a low spot, that's where cold air is going to settle, and you can make your tent easily 10 degrees colder. I've done it. It's not pleasant, so be mindful. Look at the general geography, and you'll see behind me, this is an uphill area, and that cold air will sink. It will pass right by our tent, be blockaded by the hill there, and it'll slide around there. So that's something to think about is, okay, if there was water everywhere, where would it run? And as long as you're not in a spot where the water would settle, you'll be okay. Up on a hill would be even slightly better, so you have that. But then also you have to think about wind protection. Right now we're in a deep lodgepole forest, so the chance of having real wind driving through here is actually really minimal. It's usually up in the crowns, which is nice, but don't put yourself in a wind tunnel where you think, oh, this is a great spot, but there's a couple of structures where wind could funnel through. Whew, you don't want to do that either. So think about where the air flows, where the wind flows, making sure your site is level, and watching out for any dangers like you can see here. This is called a deadfall or a widowmaker. Do not put your tent anywhere where that could fall down, because the one time the wind shakes and that tree comes down, it could easily damage the tent, easily injure us, if not kill us, because that thing's several hundred pounds, and with skewers of broken branches coming out, oof, don't do the Dracula thing. So always watch to make sure that there is no deadfall around your tent, because that deadfall, that thing's probably 25, 30 feet tall. So when it falls, it's going to strike way, way over there. So you gotta think, oh, we're away from it. No, that tip coming down is a lot of power. So it's something to be careful and mindful about. And also look for animal tracks. Because if you see a bunch of animal tracks cruising through an area, you might be on an animal trail or path that they always use. Don't camp there because you'll get a midnight visitor that you probably don't want. And that goes for chipmunks, squirrels, coyotes, elk, bison, moose, wolves that we had a few days ago, and bears. If you, especially you see any bear tracks in the area, you might want to reconsider your tent location, because some bear might think this is a highway and you park the tent on its highway. The bear might bulldoze your tent and say, this is my highway, and you're going to be able to do nothing about that. So definitely watch for those tracks. If you see a lot of tracks, reconsider your tent location before you even start, because that means that place is busy. Small animals can chew into your tent. Big animals can chew into your tent and you don't want to have that happen. So hopefully those few pointers on choosing tent sites are real helpful for all the things of weather, wind, air motion, animal tracks, water flow, deadfalls, snow falling on you. And also, if you camp in beautiful meadows, the last point, did that last night, even though the meadow is just space with no trees, it was cold. It was like minus 20, minus 25. Really cold. By camping in the trees, these trees absorb infrared radiation in the day, and they actually re-radiate a tiny bit of heat at night, and it makes a huge difference in the warmth of your campsite. So trees, just like the Hug a Tree program, are your friend, because that little bit of re-radiation makes a big difference in how warm or cold your tent is, or your campsite is. The open spaces are really beautiful, but those are going to be the coldest nights. Plus, if a wind kicks up, you're going to get punished. In the trees, definitely less punishment there. My name's Linsdau. I'm a polar explorer and professional adventurer. Please like and comment on the video and subscribe to the channel if you found it useful. Check out my link below to Adventure Expedition 1, how to adventure like this. Also my book, How to Keep Your Feet Warm in the Cold. Exactly as it says, over 100 tips to keep your feet warm in the cold. And also my book, How to Camp in the Cold. So that way you have all these ideas and tips that I've given you in this video, plus a lot more. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy your adventures.